Hey guys! It's literally been years since I actually created a project on hyperPad, which is kinda crazy, and hyperPad has advanced a lot since then, so I decided to start creating my own video editor using hyperPad. Why? Because the one I use kinda sucks, and I'm getting tired of using it. I've been using this video editor to edit literally every single video on my YouTube channel up to this point. It's pretty decent, but as you can see, my upload schedule is absolutely cheeks! Please, literally! I blame college for this. I want to optimize my workflow so I can push out more content for you guys. If I can make a video editor that can make my job easier, more efficient, and catered to my editing style, then I should be able to edit videos much quicker than I usually do. Right now, editing a single minute of a video like the one you're watching takes around an hour on average. So editing a 10-minute video would usually take me around 10 hours. That's literally terrible. Holy shit. Oh, and that's not even considering the time I put into writing a script for the video and actually recording it. But if there's any bottleneck in my video production process that's slowing me down, it's this fucking thing! Anyways, I actually started this project months ago, and I'm just now making a video about it because I have the time to do so. College was smacking my butt like a drum, but now I'm on break, so yippee! Yeah, I started back in May. I created a blank new project starting from scratch. And here, I wanted to have a projects page where you can see all of your projects just like in hyperPad. So I started off by making the top navigation bar. Oh, and I also imported some fonts to personalize my project a little. The top navigation bar has a title, a plus icon, and a very thin green outline under it. All of this also adapts to different screen sizes. Very cool. Then I created the project thumbnail. This is what a single project will look like in the projects page. Here's the title, when it was last saved, and a generic icon. It's very simple, but it would do for now. I played around with a bunch of different potential layouts, and turns out having 3 projects per row was decent considering all screen sizes. So after a little bit of coding, I was able to have the projects page show up with a bunch of project thumbnails, and it adapts to all screen sizes. Perfect. The way this works is pretty interesting. All of these objects contain the same tag, and in the behaviors, I use the load image behavior to capture these objects. What this does is create a graphic that captures all of the objects, and you can apply this graphic to another object. Despite this looking identical to this is actually just a single object. This is what is happening here. Every project thumbnail you see on the screen is a single object, which makes it a lot easier to work with. Next, I worked on scrolling. I really think hyperPad should implement a built-in scrolling feature. That would be cool. Wait, I literally work for hyperPad, what am I saying? I can just add it myself! If you want a tutorial on how I did this, let me know. I also made it display this when you have 0 projects. After that, I started working on the Create Project menu. I wanted the interface to look sleek and minimal, so I took some inspiration from FL Studio Mobile. I really liked how the text contrasted against the background and how clean everything looks here, especially in this theme. Ooh, this slays! So far, you can edit the project title, video resolution, and description. You can also change the display color of the project thumbnail for the projects page. That's just a visual thing. All of the text fields can be edited using a keyboard, and I actually coded a protocol that forces the menu to move up to make the text visible so it's not blocked by the on-screen keyboard. I intend to make this behavior persistent throughout the app. At this point, we're only able to create new projects, but we can't edit them or delete them, so that's the next thing I worked on. I had to make it recognize that a project is being touched. Like how I touched your mom, you can see that I've added some animations when interacting with them. What? I didn't say anything. What are you talking about? After a bit, I coded in a way to actually be able to edit a project. It's literally just the Create Project page with some additions, so tapping on a project will select it, and from here you can make changes or delete the selected project. The project page is finished. Now I actually have to start working on the editor itself. Tapping on the Open Project button will take you to a new scene, and this will be where all the tea is gonna be. I started by making the top navigation bar again. At this point, I noticed that the hyperPad pause button would take the top left corner, so I decided to move it to the right, and I've also moved this plus button to the left to account for that. Then I started working on the timeline, which is literally just a big rectangle at the bottom of the screen. That's all I did for the UI at that point. I just wanted to work on the actual scene itself. So I added a camera and started working on having the user be able to navigate the scene. The camera is represented with a green outline. Anything inside will be visible on the camera just like in hyperPad. Eventually, I've implemented pan and pinch controls. You can see where my fingers are touching the screen. The red circle is the midpoint between the two fingers, which is used to determine where the screen should zoom towards. That's how the project knows where you're trying to focus when pinching the screen. Pretty much every modern touchscreen device does this too. Just a quality of life feature we don't really notice but take for granted. It shows how much work is actually put into designing user-friendly interfaces. Now that you can pan and pinch the screen with ease, I've also added a camera button at the top navigation bar that teleports you back so you don't get lost. Eventually, I figured that there could be more uses for this button, so I worked on that. After a little bit, I decided to go with a different icon and call this Viewport Actions. You may have noticed that there are keybinds to these actions. I intend to make a bunch of keyboard shortcuts so keyboard users can take advantage of it, but of course, everything will still be accessible for touchscreens. I placed the camera icon on the bottom left of the camera in the scene instead, so it's obvious to the user that this is the camera. I actually went to Figma to design a bunch of icons for this project. For example, I made this tab thingy for the timeline, which is used to make it collapse like this. Cool. And of course, it works for all screens. Later on, I would actually start adding stuff to the timeline and implemented a way to expand the timeline even more, so you'll be able to see more content in the timeline. Of course, there's nothing yet, I was just thinking ahead a little. Next thing I wanted to work on was the asset library. You'll be able to import media to use in the project, and I wanted a centralized place where you could easily see and manage them. Kinda like in hyperPad. Wow, you're taking a lot of inspiration from hyperPad. Yeah, you can say that. Oh shit! I forgot the notch on the iPhone X. Well, it was a really simple fix. Just move the elements to the right. It's whatever. The first thing I worked on was fonts. Literally just a page of fonts. I used the same technique as I did with the project thumbnails in the projects page. I imported a lot of fonts and manually had to add every single one of them in. Ooh, it was kinda tedious, but I think it'll be worth it in the end. Also did the same thing with audio. Each sound here is actually referencing a sound asset in the project's assets in the sounds folder. All of these sounds are actually the same ones I use in my videos. Eventually, I made it so the audio files are somewhat organized, so we have music and sounds, which comes from their respective folders. And yes, I hard-coded all of them manually, cause there's no way to actually read the contents of a folder inside hyperPad using behavioral logic. Yet, I've also implemented a way to actually preview these audio files. Later on, I spent a lot of time making images work, and the way it works is pretty fascinating. I am still using the same technique as I did with the project thumbnails, but the images are drawn in a render texture in a way that they're cropped and low resolution. When you import images in hyperPad, most of the time, the asset is called img_, followed by 4 numbers. Knowing this, I've actually made hyperPad search for images by brute force by trying all possible combinations. This is the stupidest shit I've ever programmed. Given a folder with a bunch of images in it, you can pretty much get all the images if every single one of them are named this way. This makes it easier because I don't have to manually hard-code in every single image. This also makes it very easy to add in more images in the future too. So after adding images, you can tap on this re-import button and it will scan through all the assets for new images. This is very quirky, but it has saved me a lot of time, so it works. I've also categorized each image depending on what folder they're in. Very demure, very mindful. Later on, I've implemented a way to preview images and fonts. They just show up as full resolution. Now that we have images, audio, and fonts in the asset library, I started adding a way to actually import these things. First, I worked on sounds. And then I worked on images. Fonts can't be imported during runtime because hyperPad doesn't support that capability, but I think with the variety of fonts that you have, you'll be fine. Plus, you can always branch this project and add your own. Yes, this project will be open source and branchable. Feel free to look at all of the code and also personalize it to your liking. It's worth noting that when you import images during runtime, it will look like this when you come back. There's just no way to save images in hyperPad yet, so you will have to re-import them again. Same goes for audio too. Alright, so the asset library is done now. Next, I started implementing the timeline. I spent most of the time working on being able to scroll and pinch it. It took a long time to figure out, but I've made it work in the end. So after I got that working, I started working on adding things to the timeline. I worked on audio first since that seemed the easiest. You can actually move the timeline, start it, and the audio will resume at that point. You can add as many tracks as you want, there's no hard-coded limit. Next, I made it so that the tracks will now have labels on them. So for audio tracks, it displays the path of the audio file. These labels will adapt to the position and scale of the timeline, so if the track becomes too short, it will actually start truncating the text like this. I selected a monospaced font for this, meaning that every character has equal width. This made it easy to determine how many characters can fit in a given space. Given the timeline scale and length of the track, we can determine how many characters can fit and change what the label displays accordingly. Very cool. Later on, I would incorporate a way to edit tracks. You can select them, edit properties of them, move them around, or remove them. Let me show you what these buttons do. So on the left, we have all the properties of the track. In this case, an audio track is selected, so we can adjust the volume, pan, and pitch. This trims the beginning of the track to where the playhead is. This moves the beginning of the track to where the playhead is. This trims the end of the track to where the playhead is. And this one deletes the track. Pretty neat, huh? The way the timeline works is somewhat complicated, but I'll explain it. The timeline is split into 15-second chunks. When a track is inserted into the timeline, given the starting time and the length of the track in seconds, we can determine the chunks to add this track to. So for example, a track at time 5 in length 1 will occupy chunks 0 and 1. We know what chunk to start at by dividing the time by 15 and rounding it down. And we know how many chunks the track will occupy by dividing the length by 15, rounding it up, and then adding by 1. The reason why we add by 1 here is because a track can occupy 2 chunks despite it having a very short length. A pretty simple fix was just to add by 1. Whatever works. Okay, but why even split the timeline into chunks in the first place? It's for performance! While scrubbing the timeline, it only iterates through tracks of the current chunk it is in. So instead of checking every single track in the project every frame, it only has to check the ones that are in the same chunk. The reason why a single track can occupy multiple chunks is because the playhead could be placed anywhere in the track. It could be at the end, it could be in the middle, it could be anywhere. This ensures that regardless of where the playhead is, the track will always be recognized while also not sacrificing performance. The current time of the playhead will be compared to the starting time of each track, so it knows when to start them. We also know the duration of a given track, so the playhead knows when to stop them. Alright, with that out of the way, I decided it was time for me to tackle automation. Yep, automation.
It's so over.
You can add keyframes to tracks, and they will actually interpolate between keyframes on all the track's properties. Over time, you can have values change, but you can scrub through the keyframes too. I use the interpolate value behavior for this. Giving a start and end value, you can provide the interpolation point to get a value between those 2 points. I worked on improving the sliders so that you can set specific values. Then I made it so that re-imported audio files actually work. When you reopen a project, all tracks that were referencing an imported file will be grayed out. This is due to limitations, of course. HyperPad can only save text to the save file. So after re-importing the assets, they will return back to normal, and you'll be able to hear the audio that you imported. Yay! Next, I tackled images. This placed graphics directly into the scene and they just stay there. Yeah. Hey guys, it's June now. I added some properties to images. You can change the color, the opacity, and the Z order. Plus, you can switch the image to another one if you like. Eventually, I got the automation to work with these properties too, besides switching graphics. Awesome. I spent a lot of time trying to make these objects editable, so when you tap on them, a gizmo would appear where you can move, scale, and rotate the object. I also worked on improving the tap gesture, so when tapping somewhere where there are multiple objects stacked on top of each other, it will first select the one that's at the top, but if you tap in the same area, it will actually try to select the object under it. This is useful if you want to interact with an object that's behind another object. Honestly, I think HyperPad could benefit from this quality of life change. So I spent time trying to make automation work with object transformations. And what the heck? How do I even manage to do that? I did get it to work, and it works pretty well. If the image already has a keyframe, it will automatically add another keyframe when you move it and stuff. This is starting to look decent. In the future, I will add a way to edit keyframes of a single property instead of just editing all of them at once. I'm gonna take inspiration from Godot. Or Godot? Where did that pronunciation come from? I thought it's Godot because it's a robot, you know?
That makes more sense.
Anyways, at this point, I added the ability to change the easing function of automations. Something that my current video editor does not have. Yes! Ugh, I love this, because when I usually edit videos, I literally make like hundreds of keyframes so that the animations will not look rigid. Now, this can be fixed with a few taps. I love this! So there's now this play button at the top that will actually preview the content in full screen. There was actually a way to change the audio latency at some point, because in screen recordings, the audio will be off, but after some testing, that's not the case actually. I just lied to myself. So I just just remove that. Besides, if there was any audio latency in the screen recordings, that can be fixed in another video editing software, one that's more precise than mine, so it's fine. I don't know, what do you guys think? I can always change this if I wanted to. Yeah, there's no way to actually export videos, so you have to screen record to get the result. That's just a limitation of hyperPad. It's a drawback I'm fine with if it means I could save lots of hours on editing. I worked on this cool feature where you can change all keyframes of an image at once. When this transform button is toggled on, moving, scaling, or rotating the image will actually apply that transformation to all keyframes. This will actually save me so much time, because previously, I would manually go through every keyframe to make minor changes. So for example, if I had this object pop in, like this, I can simply toggle on the transform button and move it somewhere else if I like. And the object will still conserve the original animation it has relative to its origin. It just does it somewhere else. Ugh, this is so cool. Yes, this also applies to scale and rotation too, which makes this even cooler. So yeah, that's pretty much all I've done so far, other than some small additions and quality of life changes here and there. I'm going to be uploading this to the hub, where you can try it out and branch it if you like. Link to it will be in the description. I literally submitted my project yesterday and I'm already getting comments on it. Please, relax. RX casually programming the engine he uses to program platforms he uses to generate content that teaches us how to use the engine he programs. Oh my god. And because of that, I'm gonna give you some coins now. Is my internet working? What is happening here? Oh, yay, I did it. That was my first time giving coins to anyone. That was cool. I still need to work on adding text, backgrounds, and maybe even adding support for prefabs and templates, but I will work on those things later. Yes, it's July 4th. I decided to make shorts using what I have so far, so I created 3 shorts for the hyperPad YouTube channel by using my video editor, and wow, it has worked extremely well. The only caveat is that I actually have to overlay videos sometimes, since hyperPad doesn't support videos, but that's nothing compared to how much I was editing prior to this project. You can definitely see some improvements. The animations are much more fluid, and it feels much more playful, plus it didn't take me hours to edit this. It literally took only less than an hour of my day, so it's already working. I could have edited much quicker if I added text and some quality of life additions. The text you see in the video are actually just images. But it does the job, and the overall product turned out to be a lot better than I expected. So yeah, that's everything I have for this devlog. What do you guys think about this project so far? What features should I add? Should I continue this project? Leave your answers in the comments below. I'm probably already using this to edit parts of this video, but it's far from being complete. Hopefully, I have time to actually continue this project, because I think it could be useful to a lot of people other than myself. Again, this project is open source. There will be a link to it in the description. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time. Bye!